design and design thinking out there as fast as we want to because we don't grow, because the culture is so strong. So how do we solve that problem? Well, one, we open sourced a lot of the methodology. So the human-centered design toolkit is out there. There's one specialized for teachers. A lot of the methodology is kind of open sourced, right? So that's one way. The second thing is through this thing called Open IDEO, which is a business model evolution for IDEO itself. So this is a crowdsourcing platform for innovation, basically. Yeah. We don't make any money off of it. We get lots of brand value out of it, but we don't make any money off of it. It's typically sponsored by governments or a large institution with some kind of challenge, right? Always framed in this kind of how might we language. And it has these pretty discrete steps of inspiration, concepting, pause, and refinement. There are now something like 39,000 people on this platform. We've done 14 or 15 challenges. In fact, we just did the first one in Asia, in Singapore, about, well, I just included the Makeathon was the last part of it, actually. It was the realization of some of these concepts. So basically, it's a platform. You can see it online. It's completely open. You can sign up. And there's a challenge. People go up there and put up inspirations, ideas. And maybe if we tried this, maybe if we tried that. There's a winnowing process, just like you would do for lots of business plan competitions and that kind of thing. Only this is for design. Get to concepts, then the community itself votes on which wants to push forward, and then there's some kind of refinement that the whole community breaks into teams and works on them. And those concepts came this time alive in the Makeathon, right? So the NEA was the sponsor of the one, the National Environment Agency was the sponsor of the one in Singapore. The CEO was at the Makeathon. He saw the end results and was literally live, like, let's take that one, that one, that one. We're going to fund them, see how it goes, right? Super prototypey. Super makey, and that was in whatever, Friday 2 o'clock till Saturday 8, right? So 38 hours, something like that. So super bottoms up, and we see actually the Singapore one was interesting because the numbers that we see across this is pretty typical. Hundreds of inspirations, some concepts, and then kind of winnowing down. But when the first 6 weeks or so, the numbers in Singapore were about where they should have been at the time. This is the time, this is the end. So, 3 weeks in, 4 weeks in, they were in the hundreds, low hundreds. But if you look behind the data, the little secret was there were no Singaporeans. Right? All the ideas were coming out from outside of Singapore. And so we had kind of talked about this beforehand, like, well, we know that Singaporeans don't really like to put their hand up, and so is this going to work? We've basically taken a platform that we invented in the West, and in some ways not done what we normally do, which is kind of transform it, and it wasn't really popping here. So the solution was, okay, well, what if we got a bunch of Singaporeans in a room together, put them in teams of 4, and then they would do ideas together, and that worked with magic, right? Because the culture didn't really put people weren't ready to kind of put themselves out there individually, but they would put themselves up there as a team. And so that kind of made the rest of the challenge kind of go more typically. Yeah. So I'm going to probably pop through this pretty quickly because you've read through a lot of this in the case. Have people seen the Bank of America case? Yes? No. I'm going to come back to this if we have time. Yeah, they know more about hospital. Okay, cool. So I'm going to come back to this. It's really interesting. So we also think about not just the product service, but how information flows in organizations. So again, the culture, the process, what's making the innovation happen. The goal also of kind of making is to get iterations faster. Right, the faster you can put it into something that you can touch and feel, the faster you can get feedback on it, the faster you can do another rev on it. Now, a lot of the times, that also the speed is not just about speed, but if you spend too much time on it, you end up with too high a resolution in a product or in an interface, and people won't give you feedback because they think it's too close to done, and so they're afraid of being critical. Because if you bring them a piece of crap, right, they're like, oh, well, why don't you do this, right? And so that speed actually gets you a different kind of feedback as well. It's not just about the speed. It's actually if you wait too long or get to too high a level of resolution, people won't give you feedback that's actually valuable. So it's an interesting thing in that speed as well. This is a cafe for State Farm. State Farm is one of the largest insurance companies in the U.S. Its headquarters are in Bloomington, Illinois, 2 hours south of Chicago. smack dab in the middle of the US. It's the most uninteresting company you can possibly think of. Except for making a ton of money. It's the premium insurance provider in the US. And they were like, well, we have, all of our people that are our customers are 35, 45 and up. They're great. It's great for life insurance, not great for car insurance. So what do we do? And so this company makes billions of dollars. So maybe we just set up a cafe, a place where people who are younger want to come hang out. You don't sell anything there. You just provide like some guidance around financial planning, what insurance might mean to you, and basically kind of make it somewhat kind of cool and hip. So this is called Next Door. This was a concept we're doing about a couple $1 million a year to run, but it's basically continual market research for them, right? In a space, this was quite, it took us a long time to convince the executives that this made sense, but they've been reading customer insights off of this for $2 million a year, which is quite cheap compared to most market research for the last couple of years. So pretty interesting solution there. This is the kind of MCYS, this is kind of social assistance, right, in Singapore. Really interesting case as well because Singapore, as you may or may not know, is very KPI driven. So everything has got key performance indicators aligned to the hilt, right? A lot of times those KPIs incentivize strange behaviors, shall we say, right? They're very throughput focused as opposed to output focused. And so, you have a caseworker here, their caseload of processing applications per week is 230. It's Friday afternoon at 3 p.m. They're like, oh, and it's 3 p.m. I'm only at 2:05. What happens? Out comes the red stamp, reject, 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 reject. Awesome, I'm at 230. Right? I hit my target, that's great. What happens to those 25 people? They go out the back door on Friday, back in the front door on Monday, and they go into exceptions. Not into the regular process, right? So now not only did he hit his KPI, he hasn't served his customer, and he's now introduced additional cost into the system because he's put those people out of the system, out of the standardized system into the exception pile, right? So when we started working with the MCYS, the first thing we did was say, okay, for 3 months, this group of people, this group of caseworkers, we're going to suspend all KPIs, right? What happens if we just, the same exact process, just suspend the KPIs? Right? So control group, regular KPIs, another group that had no KPIs, behavior changed significantly, right? And then we redesigned the process itself in the control group that had no KPIs, right? So we could actually find the behaviors that people really wanted to have, that weren't being radically incentivized from weird incentive structures. This is also, as I mentioned, we did IT as well. So it's a kiosk system at the EPSC that helped feed into the actual center. This allows you to actually have a name, right? So if you think about where people live in Singapore, all these places are called Block 72, and like Yonge Siak 82. It's all like numbers, all engineering speak, as opposed to kind of some humanity. So when you go to this place, it used to be like, who are Americans here? Yeah, go into like the DMV, the Department of Motor Vehicles in the U.S., right? And you sit in like these terrible plastic chairs, and there's like bulletproof glass between you and the people serving you, and they're like, number 4286, please come to the counter number 2. It's like, what am I here? I'm just getting my driver's license. Imagine if you're going to move your life across the seas, right, to Singapore. So someone in the Singapore government had the foresight 5 years ago to say, hey, Singapore's a brand. This is our first brand face, especially to the 2 million foreign workers who work here, right? And redesign the experience. Even before we got here, this was the fastest visa processing center in the world, but it wasn't the best, right? And making that distinction between efficiency and experience, and trying to get both along the way, and making sure that that just fast doesn't get you anything, right?
By the way, this is not when you get the student pass. It's a different organization. They have experience with the student pass, and I think it looks similar, but it's not the same.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Sorry.
Short question. You said you had 3 months for controlled experiment. How long is usually a typical project?
Yeah.
That you
So that would vary in different parts of the world, right? If you're building a product, a lot of times it's a 3-month project, roughly. It could be 9 weeks, 10 weeks, 11 weeks, whatever. We start looking at stuff that's a bit more complex, right? So you're looking at services, it's longer. You're looking at services involved in an organization, it's longer still. we're doing more of this transformation work these days. Well, let me make that. Singapore is doing a lot of that work, right? People call it, within IDEO, Singapore is known as the edge of the edge of the edge of IDEO. Because it's literally geographically the edge of IDEO. It's also size-wise the edge of the principal office, or 12 of us. And the work we're doing is really pushing the boundaries of what IDEO does. But you know, the Ministry of Manpower work, inside of which sits the UPSC, that was 3 years, right? Now that's a project, and then a break, and then a project, and then some stewardship, and then a break, and then a project, right? But over time, we might do 4 or 5 projects during that time period, with some breaks and some like, okay, you guys should do this before we're ready to do the next thing, yeah? So typical, but almost, you know, it's hard to get a project less than 8-9 weeks, because we typically spend 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks up front doing very, very deep research in the field, watching behaviors, very, very deep interviews. We don't do any focus groups. I'll tell you some about that, but it's all, the research part we feel like we can't skip. What we are trying to do these days, again, also in Singapore, is use a little bit more, to use some different tools to try and get at insight. So we'll do a lot more kind of hypothesis testing, where we'll build a prototype, especially digitally, put it out there, see what happens, revise it, as opposed to kind of doing 3 or 4 weeks of research and then building, then doing content again. So it depends on the client. You know, some clients get really antsy about you touching their brand, right? And so we'll do some prototyping stuff, you know, without a different URL. It just depends on what the client's comfortable with. But that's also kind of, it's a lean startup in some ways inside of it. But we've been doing that forever. You know, Eric and Steve have just been, Eric Reese and Steve Blank, who are doing lean startup stuff, to just kind of give them a language, I think, to engineers for what I've been doing for a long time. Right? Other questions?
Why don't you do any focus groups? I know we talked a little bit about that, but why not? Do you think it's not relevant? Or?
Yeah. Well, I said there's two things. One is we don't do a lot of we don't do almost any surveys, right? Because surveys get you an inch deep very broadly. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. You might want to have that quantitative data as well. We just don't do it. We'll outsource it sometimes. Focus groups get you pretty distorted data, right? You're in some kind of controlled setting where you're incentivizing people to talk about how much they like your cereal. It's like, I'm not sure what that gets you, right? And so, and also people often have a hard time telling you what they actually want or need. And so we a lot of times we'll ask them, but sometimes we'll ask them to draw it, or to build it, or we'll have them interact with something and we'll watch them. Or we'll watch them in their natural environment, in their homes. We'll stay in their houses, we'll go hang out there for 3 or 4 hours. People stay overnight sometimes. A colleague of mine was in Australia doing some research, and he basically got on couch surfing and went and couch surfed for 4 days, right? It turned out that he had part of the team was going to Brazil, and he couldn't go because he didn't have a visa. So that was his like, okay, I'm gonna spend 4 days looking at Australians in the outback and how they use this part of the service, right? So almost all of us, while we have design researchers, almost all of us are trained in kind of observation and interview techniques that are really very, very deep. And those interviews will take 2 hours or 3 hours or over the course of a day and a half, right, in observation mode. And so the depth you get there is a really different level of depth and a really different kind of insight as a result. Oftentimes, you know, a lot of us these days can do 12 interviews and get a ton of information, right? And sometimes you go to a client, they're like, you're going to talk to 12 people, right? And well, yeah, we're going to talk to 12 people for 4 hours apiece. And that's a really different mindset than we're going to talk to 10,000 people. But you're not really talking to 10,000 people. You're asking 10,000 people 4 yes or no questions, right? And so, yeah, not that you don't want to do that, but we don't do that, and we will use some of the data sometimes, but the research methodology is quite different. Yeah? So this is, none of this is real rocket science, and again, the human-centered design toolkit is out there, right? This oftentimes makes it look like there's a process, and of course there's a process, but it's not linear. And what we do in each step, of course, is quite practice-driven. But the big thing we do is like ask a lot of open-ended questions, and then ask a lot of really closed-ended questions, right? This is all the interviews are designed this way, all the projects are designed this way. Each phase of the project is designed this way. to kind of open up and explore, and then put something in front of someone and say, what do you think about this? Open up and explore, what do you think about this? Yeah? We also have these three lenses. I was kind of talking about this a little bit earlier. So the desirability is the design lens. I mean, what do you want this thing? What's the need there? The feasibility one is the engineering lens. Can we actually build it? And the viability one is the business one. Now, a lot of times you have a designer, and again, designers are guilty as well of wanting to create beautiful things. And sometimes to the exclusion of anyone being able to build it, or whether it's viable in the market. Whereas most people in this room, myself included at various points, want to make some money, but I haven't really ever given a thought to like, is anyone going to actually use that thing? And then the engineers always want to sit in the room and code cool shit for them that no one will ever buy, much less be able to use. So we try to combine those different lenses in most projects. Now, parts of IDEO will have more focus on one of these or other, depending on where they came from. The Bay has the DNA as product design, so they might be more focused on one of these, whereas again, Singapore was built from the ground up to do transformation. So we'll think about these probably more holistically. Again, not rocket science, but we do go out some time thinking about what's happening in people's lives, getting inspiration, generating insight about what their behaviors are, creating ideas, and then implementing them. But again, inside of each one of these quadrants, there are tons and tons of iterations. And the interesting thing also about IDEO is historically we have not done a ton of implementation. Especially in the US, people are willing to pay us to come up with ideas and concepts and then say, cool, and walk away, right? Now for designers, that's not great because designers are not artists. They're not interested in, they're not there to express themselves. They're there for impacting the world. It's a very fundamental difference between what they value in the world, and so designers like to implement. They want things in the world, in market, in companies being worked out. In Asia, our implementation ratios are much higher than in other parts of the world because clients demand it, which is awesome because the designers love it, right? So it also makes the sales cycle, again, longer. I'll talk a little bit more about that, but so our cost of sales is, again, almost 3 times what it is in the US. But that means that once we get into the project, we've also spent a lot more time figuring out what the project really is. We've also built a lot more trust along the way, and therefore less problems in the back end, and more with the market. Variations in the business model. One of the last things I'll tell you about how we work at IDEO is that we look for extreme users. So I can interview 12 people and get a good sense because I look for people who are very extreme in their opinions. Americans will know OXO kitchen utensils. You guys know the story of this? So there's you have a potato peeler. Typically it's like a metal thing, but it has a peeler on one side. It has a very functional handle that's really small. And someone asked, it wasn't actually us, it was Smart Design, to redesign that thing. So they went out and they talked to people who don't use potato peelers, like kids, and like people with arthritis in their hands who can't grip that little tiny handle, and like chefs who are at the other end who use a lot of potato peelers. And so by looking at people at the end, by talking to people at the ends and observing them, you can design something that has far more breadth than looking at a bunch of. Like I ask people like, okay, in a survey, like who's average? Like that's what a survey gets you, right? Averages. That's great for market sizing, for instance, but it's terrible for products because no one of us is average. So what you want to see is the extremes, and use that to design the product or service. So in that case, the insight was that people with arthritis or kids can't grasp that little handle because their hands aren't strong enough. So they made the handle bigger, right? Genius. And it turned out that the leverage you needed to be able to peel the potato or carrot were totally different. Therefore, people could do it. As a result, now there's a whole line of kitchen utensils, and now they're doing building tools, right? Hammers and screwdrivers for like big burly guys, because the ergonomics of the design were totally different. Now that's a product example, but looking at people on the extremes and the edges is what gets us often the insight. I'll tell you a great story about that if we get to the Bank of America case. So I'm going to pop through this really quick. So this is Christian, as I mentioned, and So the guy asked us to, I hope this is in the right sequence. The guy asked us to kind of tell him about his customer experience, right? He had this thing with his sister-in-law, and we came back and said, okay, we're going to go do some research, and we'll come back to that board meeting, we'll give you a presentation. Like, great. Before we said we came into the board meeting,